being the master of ceremonies, which means you didn't come to hear me. So in that respect, let's
doing. Sounds like we got some Trump fans out here. Who's gonna win in November? We have a great opportunity to live in the greatest land in all the world. And God, we get to participate in an election that will set the course of our nation. We pray, oh God, that others that are out there would make an appropriate decision, the right decision, to realize and understand that America, if it's going to be great, it'll be great because of you. And God, we need to be the leaders of the world. And we're asking for a man that will lead this nation, guide us and direct us according to your wisdom, your insight, and your direction. Thank you for the men and women that have served this great country. Thank you for our first responders. Thank you for the police officers. Law and order is always in order. And we just want to tell you how grateful we are and how thankful we are. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Who's going to win?
Let's have a big hand for Senator Reverend Maurice Washington. Now that we have the prayer out of the way, we'll move on to the pledge. We're blessed to have Sally Wiley here today. She's a dear friend. She's also a Gold Star mom who will lead us in the pledge.
Good afternoon to all you Trump supporters. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Gold Star mom, Sally Wiley. I always love the Pledge of Allegiance. I think we need to emphasize two words more. One, we're a republic. Two, God. With that, we have next Rick Radke, who will be doing the national anthem. No one takes any knees.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in singing the greatest national anthem ever written? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets wrangling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Number one, going to be again. With that, thank you, Rick Radke. We have three people who are going to speak here today before we get to Mr. Trump. In that respect, I don't want to stand between you and them because there's a lot more of you than me. So in that respect, let's start off with a good friend of mine, Joey Gilbert, He's been in politics for a while. He's a good man. Mr. Gilbert.
Good afternoon, Reno. Thank you. Okay, hey everyone, so how exciting is this, first off? How exciting is this, right? So first, I want to thank Mr. Trump for having me. I want to thank the campaign. I want to thank the Nevada GOP for all their hard work. So first and foremost, guys, what a movement, right? What a movement. Let's talk about that. It's coming down the tracks, baby. The Trump train is here. But I could not think of a better way to spend an afternoon without my fellow deplorables. You know, I have to say this much, though. The hardworking Americans that Hillary Clinton calls deplorables, I call patriots. And we have to stand up for our country together. So let's do this. I just want to say a few words to remind everybody about who we have competing, who we're competing against and what they stand for. So let's take it from the top. Let's talk about taxes for a second. So Crooked Hillary and Tim Kaine have gone on the record stating they want to raise taxes. And she's specifically pounding the podium like a crazy woman, screaming about raising taxes on the middle class. In the wake of a season, straight out of Governor Pence's playbook, in the wake of a season where American families are struggling in this tough economy under the weight of higher taxes, Obamacare, and the war against energy, coal and oil, they are actually proposing to raise taxes. The stifling avalanche of regulations coming out of this administration is sickening. And Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine want more of the same. It truly is remarkable. Guys, listen to this. It truly is remarkable, okay? They are advocating a $1 trillion tax increase. More regulation, more big government, and more of Obamacare that now even former President Clinton has called a crazy plan. It just doesn't make sense. It's absolutely silly. Now, Mr. Trump, I'll remind you, has proposed lowering taxes across the board to put more money in the pockets of middle-class families. But even more, incentivizing companies to bring jobs back from overseas. And putting the 95 million unemployed Americans back to work. Let's put a successful businessman to work for America. Now, on immigration, I gotta say this. Mr. Trump is not against immigration. He's against illegal immigration. We are a nation of immigrants. That's what makes this country great, but they have to do it lawfully. It has to be done legally. Now, let's talk about the wall. Let's build that wall. We're going to build that wall, aren't we? But we're going to build that wall for a lot of reasons. We're going to build that wall to keep Americans safe, to secure the border, and to take words from our former President Ronald Reagan. And I'm simplifying this, but he said something simple. Any country without borders is not a country. We must secure our borders. Now, I'll remind you, crooked Hillary Clinton wants open borders. Open borders. That means the drugs that keep pouring over the border into our communities and killing our kids, she wants those borders to remain open. What do you think about that? This is something I found very interesting. Who in here watched the debate the other night with Mr. Trump? All right, now I gotta say this. We gotta give it to crooked Hillary Clinton. We really do. She is a polished politician, is she not? Is she not? So now this, if that's what you want, if you want more of the same and you want a crooked, polished politician, she's your girl. It's that simple. You know, we know what we're getting. Now, I think it'd be fair to say and safe to say that Mr. Trump is not a polished politician, right? He is a roll up his sleeves, get in the trenches, grind it out, persevere guy, and that's who we need fighting for America. So I say this, Nevada, what do you want? Do we want another 4 years of a polished politician, or do we want an experienced businessman running the show? Exactly. Now I know these answers. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this, though. How well has America done with the polished politicians? Do we really want more of the same? I know I don't. And I think we all know who and what Mr. Trump stands for, and that is for us and for the American people. Now, another thing that really bothered me the other night, do you know in that 90-minute debate that over a third of the time was spent on Mr. Trump's federal income taxes? 1/3 of the time. But I want to ask you guys all one question. Has anybody in this room been hurt by Mr. Trump not releasing his federal income taxes? Nobody suffered a bit, have they? Anybody, let me ask you this question. Did anybody hear one question about the Clinton Foundation, pay to play, Benghazi, or the thousands of emails that have gone missing from the State Department? Did anybody hear a question from that? Does anybody else see anything wrong with that? Okay, I gotta say this. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to say this much on crooked Hillary Clinton and that debate. Actions speak louder than words. And I don't think anyone got hurt by Mr. Trump's taxes not being released, but I know a few men that didn't make it home from Benghazi. Now, as far as the land of opportunity, so much has been said regarding what Mr. Trump has done in his business, and they've actually targeted him for being a successful businessman. But isn't that what this country was founded on? Isn't that what our forefathers stood for? Which is that America was the land of opportunity, the shining city on a hill. Free enterprise, where you or any man or woman can work to provide for their family, to give back to their community, just as Mr. Trump has done. Now, his whole life he's created jobs, created work, so those that he's employed could take back money to their families and to their communities. So I ask you this, Mr. Trump's been knocked for making money. But have you ever seen a civil servant like Secretary Clinton, who took in hundreds of millions of dollars as a civil servant from big government? Is that fair? Is that fair that she faced no questions? Is that fair that she didn't have to toe the line? So Nevada, this is what I have to ask you all today. Do we want a career politician, a polished politician, who got rich off big government, or an experienced, proven businessman working for America? Now, there's a couple other points we're going to touch on. A couple other points. Let's talk about this. How about this refugee situation? Hillary Clinton has proposed a 550% increase in refugees. Now, I got to say this, and I've heard Mr. Trump say it. We're not opposed to people coming here. But at the end of the day, we need extreme vetting. And the fact that her candidate, for vice president, Tim Kaine, was on television last night saying that he doesn't believe we should be asking these people what country they came from or what religion they are. I mean, it's absolute madness, folks. It's just silly. Okay? Now look, I could spend hours up here talking about crooked Hillary Clinton. I'm not going to do it. What I do want to bring up, last few important points are this. The Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation. The pay to play. Simple as that. Pay to play. Now let me ask you this. She is beholden to the global elite. How is that not a conflict of interest? Okay? And now finally, I want to close with this, guys. I want to bring up our military and our law enforcement. Let's give a round of applause for our law enforcement. These are the men and women who put their lives on the line every day. This is a law and order country, and we need to be thanking them, supporting them. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is our great military. What made America great? Our military. Why would we change things? Why have we stopped investing in our military? Look, we all know that in life, if you want something, if you're going to work for something, you have to invest in it. It's the same thing with your personal life, your family, your kids, your job, your career, your business. You have to invest in it. Why did we stop investing in our military? Right? It is time to put our military back to its level of greatness. This previous administration and crooked Hillary have decimated our military, and it's time to stop that nonsense. And finally, our veterans. No one will look out better and do more for our veterans than Mr. Trump, period. Ladies and gentlemen, the choice is so clear, and it's so simple. On one side, you have the global elitist that cares only about herself, selfish, crooked Hillary Clinton, and on the other side, you have an experienced, proven leader, a proven businessman with a proven track record of winning. Who do you want in your corner? This November, do the right thing for this country. Go out and vote for Mr. Trump. Thank you. Trump, 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 Trump.
Let's hear it for Joey Gilbert. The one thing I do need to remember, everybody should already know. I hope everybody here is already registered to vote. If you're not, you have until the 8th to do it by mail, the 18th to do it online or in person. And if you're already registered to vote, find some friends, like-minded, please. But we have to make sure everybody's registered to vote. With that, I have the honor right now of introducing a friend of mine. He's a great man. He served in our military in the Navy. He's an Iraqi war veteran. He's also Nevada's Attorney General, a good friend, Adam Laxalt.
Good afternoon. How we doing? Are we motivated? Well, I just want to start to say what an honor it was to go to Cleveland and represent our state as a delegate in July, what seems like a lifetime ago. But I think we did our state proud and set up our state for where we are today, which is another poll just came out in the last hour that has Trump up 2. So, I want to discuss a little bit about one of the things that I think is important about this election, and that is our courts. And a lot of you hopefully have heard about our courts and how much trouble we're in today. We lost the nation's greatest jurist of the last 100 years, Antonin Scalia, just a few months ago. And I can tell you we're already feeling the loss on the court with the 4-4 divide. Here in Nevada, we're in the Ninth Circuit. And many of you know the Ninth Circuit is the most liberal circuit in America. Now, what's that mean, that it's the most liberal circuit? It is the most overturned circuit by the United States Supreme Court in America. So now that we've lost the majority on the Supreme Court, if we do not elect Trump and he does not put in a replacement for Justice Scalia, we will not have a check on the Ninth Circuit. What are the things that are happening out of the Ninth Circuit these days? Well, recently we have a very important Second Amendment case in the Ninth Circuit. It's a case out of San Diego that the rule basically says you cannot leave your house with a handgun. Anybody think that's a good idea? And it's something we believe the U.S. Supreme Court has spoken on, but the Ninth Circuit continually ignores the United States Supreme Court. So without that justice, our Second Amendment is in grave jeopardy. What else is in jeopardy? We have a lot of criminal matters in this state that we take seriously as the Attorney General's office, and other prosecutors around the state work hard to put bad people behind bars. And just in this year, the Ninth Circuit has attempted to release both a murderer and a pedophile. We're, of course, fighting that, and the Supreme Court has told the Ninth Circuit multiple times that they're supposed to give our state criminal justice system great deference, and they ignore it. When you have these liberal majorities on these courts, they tend to ignore the rule of law. And that's what we're facing with a 5-4 majority. An appointment by Hillary Clinton would be fatal to our system. What else matters to Nevada? Freedom, all right. Sage grouse. Many of you know we filed to try to protect our state on the sage grouse. United States. Many issues that affect our ability to make our decisions for our state and decide these things with our own people in mind, not let the federal government do that. The Supreme Court will be the ultimate arbiter of these important decisions. And I can tell you the Ninth Circuit is not going to be a friendly place to be able to say the federal government overstepped its bounds. This president has been overturned by the Supreme Court more than any of the most recent presidents, and in many times 9-0 decisions. So we need to make sure we have a Supreme Court that recognizes there are limits in our system. We have a Constitution. There are ways to pass laws. There are ways to change things. And it's not for a president to go alone and unilaterally change our rules and our country. So those are the stakes, folks. Now I want to talk briefly about Secretary Clinton. As many of you know, I'm a former Navy veteran and I served in Iraq. Oh yeah. And I could tell you, as Governor Pence said last night, that if someone in the U.S. military set up a private server to take classified military emails and go around the government, probably a single email, much less 30,000 and counting emails, what do you think would happen to that service member? Promotion? No, I think that person would be eligible for a court-martial. And instead, Secretary Clinton is looking for a promotion to lead our United States Armed Forces. We've seen the Clinton Foundation, which unfortunately there's so much going on there, it's impossible to even focus on. We have millions and millions of dollars going into that foundation from foreign governments, which reports have shown are coming from meetings with Secretary Clinton, followed by large donations to the Clinton Foundation. Does that sound right? This is after she promised on the way in there would be a rigorous wall between the foundation and her job in the United States State Department. We've got a lot of questions, and unfortunately we don't have any answers, but it's very, very troubling. Last, I want to touch on Benghazi. Again, for military people and many Americans, this is a huge issue. You have someone that's in charge of the State Department. And my former boss, Ambassador John Bolton, always makes this point when he's on the road. A U.S. ambassador is the representative of our American president abroad in an embassy. That is our representative. And our ambassador was murdered. Murdered. And what happened? And all of these things, of course, are dismissed as a right-wing conspiracy and a just constant attempt to just take her down because it's all politics. Fortunately, the American public is on to her. and her trust is at the lowest level of any major candidate we've ever had run for president. So where do I want to finish? Are we going to vote? Are we registered? If you're not registered, I'm going to repeat what Senator Settermeyer said. October 8th in person, October 18th online. We have to get registered. We are losing ground in registration every single day in this state. Don't take that for granted. So are we going to vote? Who are we going to vote for? Are we motivated? All right, thanks everybody.
Let's hear it for Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt. The next person I have the pleasure of introducing is, again, a friend of mine. I've worked with him in the Nevada legislature for a long time. I served right after him in the Assembly, and then I actually took his spot within the state Senate. He also was in the military, in the Army. He has a daughter who served in the Navy. I'd like to introduce your congressman for CD2, Mark Amadei.
Hey, Nevada. Hola. There we go. Listen, I'm going to get the hook pretty quick because some guy from New York is like almost here. Had a couple unscheduled stops in Fernley and Lovelock, but he's just around the corner right now, so get ready. Real briefly, you know, there's been some talk about talk in this campaign. And I want to remind you of something that I think is a profound piece of the English language that somebody in this campaign said. Follow along with me if you would, please. The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. ... What difference does it make? What difference does it make about the fact that we had 4 dead Americans? So while I know we have this alternative universe that talks about, please look at anybody but this particular candidate that's saying these things, you know, Ronald Reagan said facts are stubborn things. It was on your watch. You ran that commercial back in the primary in 08 that said, who do you want answering the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning? Guess who we don't want answering the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning after January 20th? Also, real quickly, I do want to remind you of something that's kind of timely. You know, because there's all this talk about, oh my God, and judgment, and you know, the drama drips from the leaf of every tree on the planet. I want to ask you a question. Who picked Mike Pence to be their running mate? For those of you in the personnel business, I'd say that's a strong HR move based on last night. Finally, I want to say this. There have been some people that have been, and I know nobody said this before, there's been some people that have criticized me personally for saying, I'm all in for the Republican nominee with the most votes ever in the history, picked fair and square convention, Donald Trump. So deplorables out there. Oh yeah, they're talking about what people say. That's right. So to all you deplorables out there, welcome to the team. And Mr. Settelmeyer's coming back up. And I know that when the big guy comes out here, you'll give him a warm Western Nevada deplorables welcome. Thank you very much.